Welcome to This Moment We're In, the show that explores how teams are navigating AI-driven change in real time, from messy experiments and breakthrough solutions to thought-provoking ideas about how leadership, collaboration, and decision-making are being reimagined. I'm Cindy Chastain, and today I'm talking with Martin Granstrom, VP of Design at Shipt, and someone who has been thinking deeply about leadership at a moment when AI is changing not just how work gets done, but who can do it. Martin recently wrote that output is accelerating, roles are blending, and that makes the quality of decisions more important than the volume of artifacts. And what I find so compelling about his perspective is that he isn't approaching this as a theoretical future. He's navigating in real time, experimenting with AI tools himself, building systems that help teams scale judgment, and creating new ways for organizations to make better decisions. Which leads to a question that sits at the heart of this conversation. When everyone can build, what becomes the role of leadership? Martin, it's great to have you here.
Thank you, Cindy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You lead design inside a company that is actively experimenting with AI, while many organizations out there are still trying to figure out what all of this even means. Would you mind sharing a bit about your company and where you are on this AI journey?
Yeah, of course. So Shipt is a retail tech company, and we connect people with high quality delivery, predominantly within the grocery delivery business. When we think about how we explore and play and learn with an AI today, I think we've been on a journey very similar to many others, where it was much about like asking teams to learn versus starting to actually do. And over the last year or so, we've sort of shifted that dramatically into putting in our Gen AI tools and learnings into practice, and how we change the way we work, how we change the way we collaborate, and also very much so the way we sort of change how we create experiences. So we have a Shipt app, a member app, which you download, and through that you get access to hundreds of retailers in the US, and our high quality shoppers delivers groceries from those retailers directly to your doorstep.
Got it. Out of curiosity, are you thinking of the physical and digital experience as well in the work that you do?
Yes. So we do both. We look after the digital experiences end to end, everything that's inclusive of the member customer facing parts, as well as the shopper gig worker facing part. And we also look after anything that has to do with the administrative tools behind the scenes that make everything work, inclusive of the physical piece, which is the operational part that makes sort of the gig workers get access to the work.
Yeah. So that essentially sounds like an entire ecosystem
Very much
of
so.
platforms
Very
and experiences. Yeah. All right. When we first started discussing this conversation, you mentioned this shift that was happening that most design leaders hadn't fully named yet. You also wrote a great article about it called When Everyone Can Build, but Not Everyone Should Decide. I'd love you to share the thesis in what you wrote.
Yeah. So I think what happens is when screen production or concept production or even production of full apps and prototypes is not anymore the bottleneck. That is basically something you can do in minutes or hours today. Then I think what shifts is your job becomes more about figuring out ways to scale judgment versus actually looking at screen by screen pixels, which have been the work you have partly doing historically through your design crits and everything else. So then you need to start thinking about how do I operate one level up by figuring out ways and systems to scale that judgment, because
Yeah.
you can't just automate it, you also need to scale it.
You know, I love that you're saying that because another guest brought up this idea that because execution was accelerating so much, that younger or more junior designers weren't getting those reps that enabled them to build judgment because of that. And sometimes, or the thing to think about is this idea of the erosion of judgment.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to you, by the way, when you think of judgment?
Yeah. So I think in a sense it's right. You get judgment, you get sort of the quality of that through repetition
Hmm.
and with experience. Like I don't think there's a way around that. But what you can do today is that you can provide frameworks and other
Yeah.
ways to help junior designers or team members earlier in
Hmm.
their careers to get to a baseline quickly so that they can use that baseline as a tool to evaluate the 10, 20, 30 concepts that's being generated.
So you were also entering in as a new leader with a new team, trying to figure out what the team's makeup looked like.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is a need to, on some level, help steer them through this.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's where I sort of had my first pivotal like realization of what Gen
Mhm.
AI and design leadership can mean. So we've had this brand refresh through the major part of last year,
Mhm.
and as we went through that, and as we starting to look at the new expression and the new patterns and the new designs for our new member app, I also realized that we need to bring the rest of the touch points along. So
Yeah.
what I did was I asked my team, like, let's look at these other 10 touch points in the shopper app, in our tools and everywhere else, so that we sort of continuously to keep making sure we level up the experiences also for those touch points. So I asked my team, hey, could you help me with an audit for sort of looking at sort of where we're at?
Right.
And then fairly quickly I got a question back. So how do you want us to do that? And I didn't have a direct, like, good answer. So I went to a Gen AI tool and I started to sort of create a framework and iterating on that, where I said, these are the touch points I have. Here's a number of criteria and sort of baselines that I need.
Yeah.
And that framework came out beautifully. It was like a really nice, strong, solid assessment of in terms of like visual expression, brand and cohesiveness, and UX, and all of these things that you really need. And for each of those categories, you had a number of criteria. So I shared that with, and I created a React app very quickly for that. And I
Yeah.
shared that React app and
That's
I asked my
awesome.
team, like, hey, could you like just use this? And everybody was like, yeah, this makes total sense. And then I caught myself, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just building another artifact that someone else manually has to sort of use. So then I took it a step further. So I basically took that framework
Uh-huh.
and I created a Gemini gem, an agent out of that. So then what happens is now I help my team to just feed that agent with screens or flows or videos, by the way, and ask it, like, how well does this deliver towards whatever that might be, outcomes, right? So all of a sudden now I have created like a tool for judgment and how it scales. So now my
Amazing.
designers and my peers could easily utilize that tool to scale judgment and making sure that we together elevated the craft at the level that we felt was needed.
Wow. That's amazing. What what did you learn from that? What insight did it give you?
Yeah. So I think I just went sort of first on autopilot
Hmm.
by instinct and by experience, and thanks to all the years of design leadership, I sort of realized that sort of this needs to happen. And then in retrospect, what I also learned is what design leadership now means, utilizing all these new amazing tools, is your job becomes to identify what of those things that your organization now needs and help making them happen faster. It's not
Hmm.
about doing the work, it's providing tools to help enable and do the work better. So that
Right.
this UX evaluation framework was the first one for me where I realized, like, okay, this is helping me help my team scale judgment, and learn.
Was that the most hands-on you'd been as a leader in a while?
In a way, yes. I have always been sort of in the work.
Mhm.
I just think that, and I, like everybody else, have spent the last year or so creating, prototypes and concepts and screens.
Yeah.
But this became real in a very different way, where like hands-on means something different now. It's not about pushing pixels. It's about leveling up what hands-on means in terms of leadership to help your team and your organization, your enterprise, to do the right things in more effective ways.
And as I recall, you brought your team along with you on that journey. So could you also say that by you taking the lead, using these tools, being a little bit more hands-on, setting up the standards, that your team also got to learn with you?
Yes, very much so. One of the things that I found very helpful was um, through the process. I,
Mhm.
I I didn't keep this for myself. Like I almost from the get go, I said, "Well, I'm starting to think about this framework, and I'm working on it." And when I had like a first or second version of it, I shared it. Like, what do you guys think? And then someone said, "Well, this and that," and okay. So I went back working on it, and then at the end of it, I landed on, I don't know, version 22 or something, where we felt like, okay, this is it. And then that realization came to me, this is too manual. I got to
Yeah,
create
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Might as well use the tools.
But I think it's also, what also happened was that my team saw like, oh, he's learning. He doesn't have all the
Yeah,
answers.
yeah.
We're learning together. And it's like, I think you build trust in a way
Mhm.
by showing like vulnerability and like, I don't know everything here. I'm learning too.
Yeah,
And I kind of failed first, and then I figure out a way to make it better, which I
yeah.
think is critical. You got to give permission to play and permission to fail, especially for creative teams.
That's true, and when someone sees their manager having the same struggles or being able to show those failures, that is truly trust building.
Yeah. And
Mm,
another thing that I see now is it took a minute, but I think now what happens is not every day, but for sure weekly, someone in my team shows me something and I'm like, wow, how did you do that? So that is sort of the 10x, 100,000x factor that you,
yeah,
yeah, because you unleash that sort of not learning, but oh, this is how I can apply it to make my job or my role or my outcomes better.
for sure, and is it fair to say that this was not only useful for the design team, but others in the organization, particularly as tools are being democratized and you have engineers who are doing a little
Yeah,
bit design, product leaders? Does it help with that?
it does because of course, like everyone now can build a prototype and it can look
Yeah.
and we talk about this AI slop,
Mhm.
it rise in types of quality of outcome, and you rather see more things come out because I do think that that stimulates ideation and innovation and good ideas. So you don't want to say, no, you can't do that because it doesn't work right. It doesn't look right.
Right.
That also helps to say when someone reaches out to me, hey, so-and-so engineer built this. What do you think? And I say, this looks pretty good. Have you ran it through the evaluation agent yet? The experience evaluation agents yet? And it's like, no, what is that? And okay, take a look at this one. And then all of a sudden, everyone can get a report back and start iterating together with their tool and make it better. And by doing so, everybody gets an elevated quality of outcomes and outputs that they produce too.
Yeah. Well, what I'm also hearing is that the form leadership has taken for you is to be someone who's enabling people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's actually great that you could share that, and I'm sure a lot of people are starting to ask more and more about it. I can imagine once they've heard about the tool you've created. But for the sake of the listeners, what does that look like? How would that work?
Yeah. So in this particular case, a really smart, innovative engineer had
Mhm.
created sort of a flow for an admin tool and reached out to me and say, hey, what do you think? Right. And then practically what happens is The tool itself is basically a chat UI that has all that UX evaluation framework intelligence. So what they do is they take screenshots or and drop, like drag and drop those screenshots right into that like little chat UI. And then the agent evaluation framework takes a look at that and comes back with a report, like evaluation. It grades it like, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, based on those criteria, like usability, brand alignment, is it cohesive, etc. So once they get that, it really helps them to look at what they built and see, all right, this is not just what Martin says, this is what the evaluation framework is.
Yeah. It reminds me of something that we built inside of MasterCard when I was leading customer experience and design there. We built something called the Design Quality Score, and it was built on a third-party platform with a certain rubric and scoring mechanisms. And it was done with real users, but it helped us and teams rather sort of make decisions based on the feedback that it got from those studies that could be done very quickly.
Yeah.
And they would also get a score. Now that score was contingent upon their ability to move forward in the process, and it helped raise the bar on experience quality across the board. Now, have you thought of using that as a gating mechanism in any way where it would be appropriate?
Yeah. I think this one also gives you a score, like a 3.7, 4.0, or whatever.
Yeah.
As well. And then what we do is, for example, at Shipt, if we look at sort of partnerships and how to work, and if someone asks me like, okay, so Martin, our web app, like a mobile web experience, how is it? Like, is it good enough, or should we sort of spend time improving it? And then of course I pick up my phone and I go through it again and again and again, and I have a point of view and I think, well, yeah, this is probably good enough. But what I do now also is I sort of try to eat my own medicine. So I take the hero flow, take screenshots, and I paste them into my UX evaluation agent and tells it like, hey, I try to understand if this mobile web flow is usable and understandable, and if it works well enough. And then very much so it spits back a really good, strong recommendation. This time it happened to align with what I thought. But what I also do, as always, like I ask a few peers, hey, this is what I think, this is what the evaluation framework thinks, what do you think? And then we as a team land on, oh yeah, this is probably what we can do. Fix a few like tiles at the end, and then elsewhere, I think we're pretty solid.
So that's fantastic, because you could also use this tool to evaluate things that are already out there in the market.
Do it all the time. It's not just new things.
Yeah.
And also what it also helps with is it creates a little bit more democratized assessment of things.
Totally.
You know this, Cindy, you've been in design for so long too. So like one of the things that everyone has an opinion about is design, because you can look at it. It's natural, right? Now we take that away from sort of someone's personal opinion to be a little bit more something that we all agreed on is a credible framework to evaluate out of. So it's not just a single person who thinks something. It's those of us that are experts plus the tool plus your peers.
Yeah. Which is a great combination. I would also imagine, and I wonder if you've seen this, that the tool not only provides an objective point of view, so to speak, based on your rubric, but when people start to use it, they start to learn what good looks like.
Yes.
And their judgment gets better.
Yeah. And exactly that. And that's what we talked about in the beginning, especially it's true for both designers earlier in their career and for cross-functional partners who may not do this all the time, but oftentimes have very good instincts. Now we help set a baseline that is understandable and consumable in a way that it may not have been before.
So the one thing that, I was noticing in this story is that the framework itself is not the entire point. The judgment is so critical, but the framework and the agent that you created is essentially infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's a way of helping an organization make better judgments, even when you're not in the room. And that made me think about another story you shared, because the challenge of leadership isn't just scaling quality, it's also scaling quality decisions.
Yeah.
And in the second example that you shared with me, instead of creating an infrastructure for judgment, you created the conditions for an entire leadership team to think together differently. And I'd love for you to tell that story.
Yeah. At Shift, we're really passionate about innovation and technology, and our culture is awesome, and we believe in the power of empathy-based creative collaboration
Mhm.
based on design thinking principles. If you trust each other to be vulnerable, then you can have really constructive conversations earlier on in your thinking and in your process. What often happens, though, as much trust and really good collaboration culture you create, to get from that to decisions often takes an enormous amount of time.
Sure.
That is not due to that people can't collaborate. It's more about the fact that you struggle to see and share the same truth about what it is that we're trying to decide. Even though we create a really good culture of trust and vulnerability and shared understanding, the challenge often becomes our ability to take decisions and high quality decisions fast or
Yeah.
faster.
So that led to a workshop.
Yeah. Yeah. And our challenge in this particular context was that we needed to find ways to come up with more innovations and ideas
Mm-hmm.
test faster. So that also means that we need to figure out a way to get to high quality decisions faster. Because if we're going to spend real money on something, then we all need to feel good about making that investment.
Of
Because
course.
obviously you want to have bang for your buck as much as you can test and iterate as always. So what we did was we created a design and innovation workshop where with our leadership team, our executive leadership team. So 4 or 5 groups, we had a LT representative in each group, and we took them through the design thinking process in terms of what are some of the most important problems that we as an organization should try to solve. We took some of those problems and defined problem statements, ideated based on those problem statements a number of solutions and ideas in respective little groups. And then normally what usually happens at that stage, once you have the ideas, you vote maybe on some ideas that you want to do, and then you send your design team off to do build a prototype or a concept. Instead, what we now did, utilizing the tools of today, was we had actually our LT members actively creating prototypes based on these problem statements and ideas in minutes.
I love that.
And some of them wanted a specific like grocery item or a specific solution for our shoppers right in there. And the way that the tool works, as I'm sure you know, is you can be pretty prescriptive now and get something real back. So once we got those prototypes and screens back in minutes, then the magic started to happen. Not only because it's something real to look at, that is not actually the important part here. The important part is that you have a shared truth, something that you built together, so that not only the fact that you collaborated and discussed earlier in the process, now you also share some of the artifacts that you created, and you share and critique that together right then and there, which means that
Yeah.
it's not a designer that went away and came back with something. We created this. We own this artifact and we can critique it, we can iterate on it, and later that day, we can actually take a decision. Instead of doing a decision in 3 months, we now do a decision in 3 hours.
And I'm guessing that the critique that you're referring to is less about, is this good design, but is this the right way to solve the problem?
Exactly. And I think that is also one of the things that these tools today help us with. They really help us to take a decision about, and it's us as leaders' job now, are we building the right thing? And this type of process and this type of work really helps to answer that question. And it's not me, it's us.
Yeah.
I strongly believe, again, it is teamwork. So because the perspective of many cross-functional partners that have experience in the field, if they can share how they create, and they also share how they decide, which means
Yeah.
that we go much faster and it's higher quality decisions much, much faster.
That idea of shared ownership also seems really important, because I've seen instances where an executive has an idea that the team must then go and figure out whether it could be done,
Yeah.
like a whole new product idea beyond not very much, beyond what that
Yeah.
person might have learned in
Yeah.
the market, and just one day came up with this, now go see if you can build it. And it's really hard to shake that person from that initial idea sometimes.
Yeah. And that goes both ways. Like practically, you can't bring all your top executive team into every discussion every day for all the
Yeah.
things you need to do. But for the larger things and for the things that have maybe more strategic weight or is inclusive of larger like investments, then this is very powerful and very, very effective.
Yeah, it is. And that kind of alignment up front is also, to me, a form of de-risking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing itself that you build right then and there actually becomes less important down the line, because now you have established the collaboration, you have established the way of taking these decisions based on the things that you built together. Iteration 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 later on, all of a sudden becomes something that we share.
Yeah,
That
completely.
that has helped so much.
I'm sure you've been in those scenarios where you get a certain way through the product life cycle only for someone to come in and say, no, that really is not where or what I was thinking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time. So and that happens still. I think we all do it as leaders too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Of course, now we have a way to scale that, to build sort of an organizational infrastructure, utilizing these tools to make that better, like higher quality and not so many surprises that late in the process.
yeah. I mean, to summarize, this sounds like a decision-making exercise that you created. The
Yeah.
prototype is simply the medium through which the conversation happened, and a very strategic conversation could happen. Now, have you thought about how you can scale those sessions?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we have started to sort of operationalize that to a certain
Yeah.
extent. We're still learning how to do this, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
I think you'll always be in that sort of learning mindset here.
Mhm.
One of the things that we do is we try to democratize this and scale this in multiple ways. One way is to make sure that not just me or my team understands how to facilitate and drive this type of collaboration workshops. It's also to make sure that anyone who's involved in this actually do understand and feel safe playing and using the tools. And it oftentimes, as you know, when you learn something new, it could be scary, or you feel like, oh, it's going to take forever. So I think part of this is also to invest in the time to together learn and explore these new tools.
Yeah, I would
And then
agree.
also like be very cross-functionally inviting. Like this is not something that I own. Like this is us. And it's very important to drive that home.
What I find interesting is how things like this workshop that you describe can become common rituals and new ways of working. And I think that's sometimes underexplored because we often think of the ways tools can be used to compress an existing way of working
Mm.
versus thinking of altogether new ways of thinking and decision making
Yeah.
that help move towards even better decisions.
Yeah. And I think there are a couple of mechanics that
Yeah.
I have learned the last year that sort of that you can like signals that you see sort of tells you that you're on the right path.
Hmm.
So one is that you get requests to do this again. Like, hey, we did this. Could we maybe do this in this area too? Or so people start asking for it or requesting
Of
support
course.
or help
Yeah.
or do this. And the other one is when you're in it, because you got to do this to learn this. You can't read a book about it and think that you can do it. You got to actually do it and dive into it, whether it's learning the tools or doing the facilitation. Once you have someone feel like they react and feel to something they created, then you won. Like then you have it.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking, from your observations, what did you see happen in that room in
Yeah.
terms of what those leaders were actually feeling, not just
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah. And I think one of the LT members when their sort of prototype came out, it was like he said, "Oh, this is exactly what we need," and then it came to life for him
Yeah,
in a way
yeah.
that he was part of doing it. So I think that to me was like,
Oh,
all right, now they know how it feels to create this, to build this, but also more importantly, to do all the thinking behind why it came out the way it did.
yeah.
So, and I think that's part of it. And the other part is like, you make it very real. It's not a wireframe anymore. You can get to like creating these concepts and prototypes with your brand expression, with your photography, with your artifacts, and that becomes real in a very different way.
I know this was one, you said it might have happened 2 or 3 times, but have you noticed any shift in the posture of leadership because they've actually been hands-on themselves? They might have more empathy for teams. They might be thinking differently about what this means for their company because you hear most leaders really just talking about efficiency gains and
Yeah,
productivity without seeing the value in this situation that you just described.
yeah. I think what I see uh, is curiosity,
Hmm.
and I think that's actually the best like receipt you can get.
Yeah.
Sort of you're on to something because it's curiosity how to try these things and how to do them and how to do them better. Like, we have a way to do this that we feel is pretty good.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm sure like you can do this better or different depending on the context and the type of business you're in or the company you work with for these things. So I think curiosity one thing that I've seen, and also uh, in our case, I think what's awesome and very healthy is people lean in and try these tools. And you reference them and say, hey, I tried Gemini and this came out, or so I think that's also a very good sign of that we're applying it, we're just not learning it.
So if you were to sum it up, what was the main insight that you gained from this story?
I think that the ability to help leaders with one of the hardest things you can do as a senior leader, which is take good decisions, aligned good decision of high quality
Mm-hmm.
as fast as you would want. I think when I realized that that was one of the things that this partly helped with, that was one of the major takeaways. What I also realized, like we had never gone there if we hadn't tried.
Yeah.
I didn't know like that was going to be like the sort of major outcome of this. I knew that this would help drive collaboration and innovation and hopefully also get a little bit quicker alignment. but I didn't realize at the level we could take really high quality decisions so much faster.
And I'm sure the experience went much deeper than that. So kudos to you for just trying it out.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's great. Now, listening to these stories side by side, Martin, I'm realizing that neither one is really about AI,
No.
right? They're both stories about leadership.
Yeah.
In one case, you built infrastructure that helped judgment scale, and in the other, you created conditions that help decisions become better and potentially even scale that. And it makes me wonder if there's a deeper shift happening right now. Not that leaders are becoming more hands-on, but that leaders are increasingly responsible for either designing or imagining the systems through which organizations learn and decide and create value. Does that resonate?
It does. And I think that will be increasingly more and more our jobs going forward,
Yeah.
because the principles of design remain. I think it's the way that you apply them and the way that you utilize them to redesign how maybe an organization operates, or how a team takes decisions or evaluate or level up is changing.
Yeah.
What you need to do now is to scale judgment and help with taking really good decisions based on all the plethora of things that you can do in a faster and more qualitative way.
It's interesting because as I hear you say that, it's starting to resonate with me that those are two of the most important things to solve for right now. There's plenty of other things, but scaling judgment and rewiring or making decision making better and easier
Yeah, I think
is
so.
really
And
important.
yeah, and the last one would be, and maybe that's in judgment, but also to make sure that you build the right things,
Oh yeah,
because that connects back
100%.
to sort of the, like, did we really talk about what problems and outcomes we're after here? Yes. Okay. So now when we created 28 concepts before lunch, which of these are really the the right ones to go after? And then once we decided like these five, how do we enable ourselves to take the decisions that enables these things, experiences, to get to market for the business?
I'd love to have a little thought experiment with you because you're coming at this from a perspective of someone whose deep background is in design. And you're a design leader with, I'm sure, all sorts of skills well beyond design at this point in your life. But does this notion of leadership also extend to other functions beyond product? Can you think of that in, let's say, the HR function?
Yeah. I think I think the principles remain.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, and I also think that, you know, is it, I can't remember now, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we started to talk about digital transformation.
Yeah.
And that sort of started within the tech team, the IT teams, the product teams, and the engineering teams and the design teams. But it quickly expanded to be inclusive of entire organizations. And I think that's what's happening now,
Mm-hmm.
but with so much more pivotal shifts and like paradigm shifts. So yeah, it may have started within sort of the sphere in which we typically operate on a day-to-day basis, which is like design and product engineering. But I think the same way, this is just transformation again,
Yes.
but at the very, very faster pace and with more things to look at, which also requires us to provide structures and tools to look at more things in a higher qualitative way. So I think it's just almost the same thing that digital transformation was 15 years ago, But now it's a new way to collaborate.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a recent conversation with a chief people officer who was vibe coding dashboards.
Yeah. Yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
Thinking of new ways of bringing together all this data that they have to make decisions. And I just love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Um, on the flip side, where do you think design leaders are uniquely positioned to contribute to transformation work?
Yeah, so I think designers' DNA, we're trained to be problem solvers. We're trained to think of options. We're trained to, through iterations, get to a better stage or better quality or a level up or an improvement of something. So I think those foundational principles apply regardless in what type of department or part of the organization that you operate in. Therefore, I think that we as design leaders have a unique, well, not position, responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to help
I like that.
articulate that in our broader organizations, because it's not something that is given. I think some people realize this and do it by intuition, but we live it and we do this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to continue to learn how to scale that and to help our peers and cross-functional partners to think about it that way too.
I agree. And as I always like to say, cultural change is also another design problem.
100%.
So it feels like, Martin, and this is what gets me really excited, that you're circling around something that points to what leadership might become across many functions.
Uh,
And when you look ahead, what do you think will distinguish the leaders who thrive in this next era from those who struggle?
yeah, I've thought about that too quite a bit, and I think that once you're willing to lean in and learn, sort of at any level,
Yep.
I think you got to be fearless in trying and learning. If it's a tool or if it's a process, I think that is one thing. Then you'll have an edge. Two, I think you need to be not only open to, but inviting to and encouraging about that roles will blend, because you'll be able to do more than one thing. You'll probably be still doing what you're really good at the core. But with these tools today, you'll probably be able to do something else fairly good as well. And
Mm-hmm.
that's true for design, it's true for product, it's true for engineering, it's true for HR, it's true for
Yeah.
any department. So I think to be inviting to become an all-around player, but with a really good edge somewhere, regardless of where that fits in the organization, I think will have a significant uh, advantage if you're open to that as a leader today. Because I do think that the way we think about good leadership will change dramatically over the next few years. And I think these pieces will
Completely.
be super important to lean into to be part of that, which I'm super excited about.
What advice would you give a, a leader, it could be a design leader, it could be product, who feels overwhelmed by this pace of change?
Yeah. Um, I think one way to do this that worked for me at least is, as a leader, you'll get questions about help with things or things that you feel like this is something that kind of keeps coming back and
Mm-hmm.
something that I have an answer to. But then maybe you can realize, like, maybe what if I level up this pain point and try to figure out a solve for it? So in my case, it was the audit or the UX evaluation framework. For others, it could be other things. So take one of those things that you are being asked to help with, which is most likely part of your job, and see if you can solve that utilizing some type of Gen AI tool and see what happens.
Yeah. Sounds like you're suggesting a level of proactivity.
Yeah, I think so. And sort of think of it as a way to learn and to try and to improve at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Um, at the beginning of our conversation, we talked about the idea that leaders will need to become hands-on in the age of AI. But as we've explored your stories, I find myself thinking about that phrase a little bit differently. It feels like a call for leaders to stay close to the work. I think you even said that at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? And also a call for leaders to actively shape the conditions under which great work happens. Does that resonate with what you've been thinking?
Yes, absolutely. I think the being hands-on will remain. I think it's just a matter of which work you do hands-on
Yeah.
going forward. That's changing. And you'll use your instincts and experience as a leader to identify those things instead of what may have been an assumption a year ago, like, oh, we can do screens faster. That's not it. Like, it's a level up now or two.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Martin, before we close, when you think about this moment and everything we've discussed, what's the one thing you hope leaders will take away from this conversation, no matter what function they happen to be in?
I think one thing is hard here, but I do think be curious and lean in and be okay with that you don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you, Martin. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. In our discussions leading up to this, I felt that you had done something really amazing inside your organization, building this infrastructure and finding a new way to think about leadership. So I really, really appreciate you coming on the show and talking about what you've learned.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so great. This was awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Before we close, I want to sit with something Martin made very tangible for me. So much of the conversation about AI turns on speed, but speed is not the same thing as progress. What Martin's stories revealed is that when creation gets easier, leadership doesn't become less important. It becomes more architectural. Leaders have an opportunity to design the conditions that help people use these new capabilities well, frameworks that help judgment scale, rituals that let teams think together, and space for people to try, fail, and learn. Maybe that's one of the real shifts in this moment. The job of a design leader is not to control all the making, it's to build the infrastructure that helps an organization learn, decide, and create value with more care. And I don't think this is unique to this discipline. At some level, there's a role to play for leaders of any function to consider what hands-on means for the way they're guiding teams, learning side by side, and enabling others around them. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked the episode, please like and subscribe.